Guys, I've been waiting a long time to do this video. This is one of my most requested modifications for the CRF250F. We got a full exhaust system, and this is from Belparts. This is one of the top tier exhaust systems for the 250F, and we're going to be throwing this on today, as well as some other things we'll get into here in a bit. And I'm going to give you a direct side-by-side comparison from the stock exhaust to the Belparts. I got a feeling this is going to be super loud. You guys know I don't really like loud exhaust systems, but man, it's kind of hard to say no, because from what I've seen in the pictures, this thing is beautiful. But let's go ahead and open this up. I've been waiting a long time to see this. Woo! Oh, A1 on the packaging. I didn't realize it, but this is 3 pieces. Oh, check that out. Whoo! We kind of got the Mega Bomb header here. The welds are pretty good on this. I was unaware that this was a 3-piece system though, so I'm curious to see how this bolts up. But yeah, I could stare at this all day. This is a beautiful muffler. I don't know if you can see that. It is wide open. This thing's gonna make a lot of noise. Thankfully, we did get a spark arrestor, so this will quiet it down a little bit, and hopefully it will be usable. Some people love the straight pipe, loud, gnarly exhaust on the 4-strokes. I do not. If I could just get one that looked like this with a stock sound, I would do that. But with some other things we have over here, we should be getting some performance gains. Guys, we also have an upgraded air filter kit. Gonna make this thing breathe a lot better. And we also have an EJK, or electronic jet kit. This is a plug and play tuner. Should be able to just slap this thing in there and see some pretty big performance gains. The stock airbox is really restricted. It does not allow a lot of air to get in. So this is gonna fix that. And in combination with the free flowing exhaust, we are officially uncorking the 250F. All right, guys, so to do the air filter upgrade kit, we got to get pretty deep into the bike. So we're going to start taking off all of the plastics. I think this is one of my biggest complaints with this bike, is that the seat bolts are underneath the rear fender. Really time consuming if you just want to check something with your battery. Now, you would be able to install some of the kit without removing the airbox, but it would be damn near impossible to remove the screen, which is what we're going to do, and replace it with the larger one. This leaves a good opportunity to get everything polished up underneath these plastics. You're going to be able to get to a lot of hard to reach areas. I always keep a Zep bottle full of dish soap nearby. A few spritz and a microfiber goes a long way. Now, this battery compartment is actually separate from the airbox. So there's 2 bolts to get this free, and there's one in the front behind the ECU. Just go ahead and slide that out and you can get to it. Go ahead and take the mudguard out, and then there's 1 more bolt remaining on the exhaust side there. Lastly, you'll need to loosen the clamp on the intake horn at the throttle body. Next, we'll go ahead and take the exhaust off. I would recommend replacing the header gasket if you're going to change the exhaust. I ended up reusing mine, but the next time I order some OEM parts, I'll probably add a couple to the cart. Now, if you have the Easy Pull clutch kit, it's going to be difficult to get the muffler out. More on that here in a bit. Now, you also have to remove this little breather hose. And just like that, the airbox is ready to come out. Be sure to put a shop towel or something to prevent debris getting into your throttle body. And now let's move on to the intake upgrade. So you're going to get this template, which lines up with the 2 tangs on the top of the airbox there. There's molding on the airbox that pretty much gives you a guide of what to cut. And this is supposed to mimic a ram air intake. Do I think it's entirely necessary? No, you can just cut a hole in the top of your airbox and it's going to do the same thing. But it's a nice little add-on that looks really good. So I'm going to go ahead and take the air filter out. Once again, good time to get things cleaned up. And for those of you who may be unfamiliar, this is the air filter. And while it may look absolutely disgusting on the outside, because I oiled it properly, if you look on the inside, none of that material got through. We'll go ahead and pop the cage out really quick. If I go ahead and turn this inside out, other than a few marks where my fingers touch, this thing is perfectly clean. Now, some people will tell you otherwise, but unless you're racing at the highest level, be sure to douse your air filters with oil. So it's pretty obvious what you need to cut, but I did take a Sharpie and trace the outside edge there. There's a number of ways you can do this. I recommend using a hot knife because I used a Dremel and it was pretty messy. Ended up burning myself with some molten plastic, but it was definitely thicker than I thought it would be. I was planning to just use a utility knife to do this, but it was not happening. And I did end up running a bead of silicone around that plate there. I thought that these were self-tappers that were included. They were not, so I had to use a drill bit to drill pilot holes for all the screws. The intake hood just pops in there. There's no fasteners for that. And just like that, we got half of the intake kit done. The next and most important part of this is to get rid of that restrictive stock screen. So that screen has the bolts welded on there, so you don't need a wrench on the inside. Just go ahead and zip those off. You'll need to remove that elbow to get to the nut underneath it. There was a little bit of adhesive, so I had to pry it loose. And you are looking at the stock screen. As you can see, the opening is very small. The only thing you'll reuse is that clamp. You can just pry that apart. And I wish I would have got a shot side by side, but that new opening is a lot bigger than stock. So this just gets nut and bolted in. Be sure to use Loctite on these. I really wish they would have included some nylock nuts for this. Go ahead and pop that clamp on there and you are done. So as mentioned before, I use this twin air kit. I highly recommend it. You have a cleaning tub and an oiling tub, but since this new kit introduces a new style of air filter, I'll just be throwing the old one away. I will mention I wasn't thrilled about the quality of these air filters. The seams looked a little janky, but I did a thorough inspection and there weren't any holes or real imperfections that I could see that would harm anything. So as you can see, I thoroughly soak this filter. There's going to be a lot of people that say that you shouldn't do that, but I would rather have a healthy engine that's going to last for a long time. Plenty of air can still get through this, even though it is so saturated. You should also go ahead and run a little bit of grease around the lip here. That way you get a good tight seal to the air box. But that is what a properly oiled air filter looks like. I was a little skeptical of this kit, but after doing everything, it was much needed, and we're going to let a lot more air into this engine. So go ahead and do everything in reverse to get the airbox reinstalled. Now I mentioned it before, the Easy Pull Clutch Kit. The Belparts exhaust system is not going to be compatible with the Easy Clutch Kit, which I'm pretty bummed about because it does make a big difference. It's simple, it just uses that bracket to create some more leverage, but that top stem there just gets in the way of the header and it is not possible. And now it is time to put this beautiful exhaust system on the bike. I would recommend keeping those header bolts finger tight until you have everything lined up. And we have the cherry on top, the muffler itself. Slide that on and you're good to go. Definitely want to put some Loctite on this bolt. And now it is time to install the EJK. You do not need to remove the tank, but since you're already in here, it's going to make things a lot easier. And besides, it's only 3 bolts. You don't need to take it off completely, just lift it off, set it to the side. I actually put a zip tie around the frame to keep it from falling over and putting too much pressure on the fuel line. But what you're trying to get to here is the injector on the top of the throttle body. So you have a male and a female end. Pretty straightforward, just unplug the factory connector from the injector. I dielectric grease any connector that I can get to when I get a bike. Install the EJK connector. And all that you're left with is the ground. There's only a few places that you can mount this. I wasn't thrilled about putting it on the fender because it's gonna have a lot of vibration there, but it is as easy as that. Now this EJK is already set up to run with the 250F, so the stock settings will be fine. Be sure to order it through Hyperlite Direct. That way if you have any issues, Scott will get you covered. Now there are a couple chassis grounds on the bike that you can run this to. I just went ahead and ran it to the battery because it was right there and it was a lot easier. I did end up shortening the ground cable. I try to be pretty good with my cable management. I don't like a bunch of wires going everywhere. As a lot of you know, I have the Tusk Street Legal kit on my bike, which comes with a lot of wiring. And I've probably shortened 20 feet of wires out of that harness. So now it's time to get all of this put back together. Follow the same steps in reverse. You might want to label some of these fasteners as you're taking them out. I've had this bike apart so many times that I just know where everything goes. We are going to do a full makeover of this bike soon. I've got a couple sets of plastics. I want to get some custom graphics. But if anybody has a set of 2022 or newer plastics with the all red and the blue, I really want to get my hands on a set. Drop it down in the comments below. Shoot me an email. They're pretty expensive to buy OEM, but I just can't get enough of that newer Honda factory colorway. All right, you guys, we got everything installed. It is time to hear this thing bark. As you can see in my reaction, this thing sounds amazing, but it is loud. The thing is though, it is a sleeper system because it's pretty quiet at idle. But as soon as you crack the throttle, this thing sounds mean. And I got side-by-side shots with and without the spark arrestor. But it really didn't make a significant difference. I gotta say, everything that I installed today went smoothly. I did have a little hiccup when I accidentally pulled one of the wires out of the connector for the EJK. It was the female connector that went into the injector. I went to release it because I wanted to run the wires somewhere else, and I accidentally pulled out the red wire. I tried for at least 30 minutes to get the pin to release so I could reset it. It just was not happening, so I ended up just wedging it in there. Got my macro lens out to peek in there and kind of wedged the wire in there with a pick. It seemed fine. It lit up and showed everything as normal. As far as the settings with the jet kit, I'm not gonna mess with anything. I'm gonna ride this stock for a while, see how it does. I would love to get access to somebody that has a dyno to get some numbers. Alexis's bike will still be stock, so we would have a direct comparison between the two to see how much gains we made. But I rode it just for a little bit coming back here into the garage, and it is definitely a lot happier. It's breathing better. It's exhausting better. I'm really curious to see how this is gonna do, and it definitely sounds like a full motocross bike now. With that being said, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. I will say that if you're gonna do an exhaust, you might as well do the intake because you're not gonna see any real gains unless you open this airbox up. Like I said earlier, you can just cut a bigger hole in the top if you want to go the budget route, but that's not the main issue. The main issue is that factory screen. And you could go in there and cut out that stock screen, but the diameter is still going to be a lot smaller than with this upgraded kit. So I'm pumped with how everything turned out. Stay tuned for the first ride video. It takes a while to make these quality install videos, so hit the thumbs up button if you enjoyed, and be sure to shop hyperlightmoto.com for all of your CRF250F needs. I'm not gonna lie, I was getting a little bit bored with this bike. Doing all of this reignited the fire, and there's gonna be a lot more content with this machine. So let me know what else you would like to see. Always remember to live free, adventure daily, and we'll see you in the next one.